In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Oh, here I am. I don't know what is going on with my computer, but it is acting up today. Hi, guys. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday around about 5 o'clock on this here YouTube channel, on Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, Twitter, Gitter, Facebook, all the other places as well, where we dig into both sides of the culture war, focusing mostly on the left, but we also take the right to task as well. And basically, we do deep dives, breaking down what's going on all sides, showing you the dark dystopian nonsense that you are not going to see anywhere else. And it is, of course, Socialism Week on The Cult. I mean, like, it's always Socialism Week on The Cult, if we're honest about that. But we are specifically focusing in on socialism this week. But I got to be honest, guys, I needed a little socialism break. I needed to just take some time. And so I did not post a clip today from the Socialism Conference. That's because I couldn't do it. I needed like a 24-hour break from socialism. But there is going to be more stuff coming. I was going through some of the clips earlier today, and there is going to be more stuff coming on that. As Judy says, yes, I was on Newsmax. I was a little disappointed that he butchered my name on Newsmax, because he specifically recorded me pronouncing my name so that he knew how to do it correctly. But I was on Newsmax today, apparently a couple times, so I'm glad at least, there's coverage. There's coverage, and I was included in that coverage, which is more than I can say for some places covering my stories. Guys, and I've got a couple things I want to talk about today, but actually let's start with this one, because I want to explain something, and I want to make sure this is really clear, because I've been doing like independent journalism for about 2.5 years now. I'm just going to turn down my microphone a little bit because I'm way loud for me. I've been doing independent journalism for about 2.5 years now. Let me tell you what, people who think that just because you have some sort of platform, that it is easy to make money on the internet when you're an independent journalist are just goddamn crazy. They're crazy. I was a very successful corporate trainer and keynote speaker before the pandemic. Right before the pandemic started, my life blew up with all this politics stuff. I never thought I would be in like politics and news and cultural commentary. This was not my life plan at all. But it felt like the right thing to do, and it felt like bigger than me. But the reason I bring up that I was a corporate trainer and I still do corporate stuff every now and again is because if I was really in this for the money, I would have quit a long ass time ago. When I do corporate training, I charge $8,000 a day as a minimum, okay? And there are bigger contracts than that. It is an extremely lucrative field to be in. So the reason I bring this up is not to brag, is not to pat myself on the back, but I took a massive pay cut to do what I'm doing now. To be an independent journalist, to be covering these stories, even though it seems like I have a platform on the internet, and I'm very, very lucky to have a lot of supporters, I took a massive, massive pay cut. And the reason I bring this up, and it is one of the things I want to talk about today, and I promise we're not going to spend too much time on it, but every single time I have a story go viral on the internet, and it does happen, every now and again that one of my news stories does go viral on the internet, I end up getting hit with a rash of conservatives in my feed, basically saying, you shouldn't be taking credit for this. Because here's what happens. Here's what happens when my stories go viral on the internet. And these are stories that may take weeks for me to research and cover. These are stories that may take me months to research and cover. These are stories, in the case of the Socialism Conference, I trained for a full year to go to that Socialism Conference. I have spent thousands of hours watching socialism to prepare for it, okay? So these are labor intensive projects, and it takes a lot to do and cover stories in the way that I do. And I'm happy to do it up until the time where I start having a rash of conservatives in my feed. So basically what happens is every time I have a story that goes viral on the internet, conservatives, and it's always conservatives, always, every single time, without any shadow of a doubt, these are large conservative accounts, will steal my work, claim they were the ones to do it, and then use it to try to grift on their audience without acknowledging where the work actually came from. And so when that happens, I go, hi, I spent months working on this story. Do you mind tagging me in it or telling people where you're getting this? Because you didn't do any work at all in this. I was the one who did it. But they never do. Never works out. The pull yourselves up by your bootstraps crowd never want to actually pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. They steal other people's work and try to use that as their bootstraps, okay? And then when I say, I would really like I'm not even asking for money at this point. I would really like some credit for the work I'm doing. I would just mention where it effing came from. When that happens, I get a massive amount of conservatives in my feed going, why are you demanding credit? You should be grateful. You should be grateful that they're even covering this story. Why do you want credit? And then I said, do you understand that the Socialism Conference cost me over $3,000 to go through? It cost me plane fare. It cost me hotels. It cost me equipment. It cost me disguises. It also cost me several days worth of work where I could have been doing something else to make more money. So let me get this straight. You want me to pay out of my own pocket to put myself in actual danger being sitting in a room with 400 socialists for 3 days. And then when I report on it and it happens to go viral on the internet, you don't want me to take any credit for it, which, by the way, taking credit for it is how I get people to sign up for my Substack, which is how I pay the bills of the $3,000 that I had to put in to going to the conference in the damn first place. And I gotta say, guys, it's like it really is a maddening thing to go through. And it's like, so, like conservatives just say over and over and over again, they tell me they basically want me to work for them for free. I'll tell you what. If you guys, conservatives, stole as much work from Project Veritas as you've stolen from me over the last 2.5 years and claimed as your own, you wouldn't even know who James O'Keefe was. And I'm going to prove this too, because this person specifically, like, she blocked me on her Twitter after she demanded that I work for her for free. But then I want to show you what she did. She posted, because she was telling me basically not to take credit for my work. And then she went and posted on her own Twitter that cameras in classrooms was not my idea because legislators in Arizona were talking about cameras in classrooms 2 years ago. Let me tell you what happened 2 years ago to make legislators in Arizona talk about cameras in classrooms. I came up with the idea 2.5 years ago and tweeted it, and it got over 2 million views. And I laid out the whole fucking plan on Twitter. I vetted all the objections. I said, here are all the reasons why people might object to cameras in classrooms. And I really started pushing for cameras in classrooms. I was even starting to push for it on like a legislative level. And then Matt Walsh came in and stole my idea and stole my talking points and went on Tucker Carlson pretending it was his idea, used every single one of my talking points almost verbatim. And that is how parents in Arizona and legislators 2 years ago were talking about the idea, because it came from me. But no one knows that because conservatives stole my work, pretended it wasn't my work, didn't want to give credit for my work. I literally have a whole section about this in my book that I wrote around the same time before Matt Walsh stole my idea, guys. And then Matt Walsh went on to do absolutely nothing with it, except what he did do is skewer actual legislative initiatives that were taking place at the time. So I bring this up, guys, because I really want people to be aware that I am happy to do the journalism. I'm happy to go to the events. I'm happy to tell you what's going on. But if you appreciate the work that I'm doing, then you need to make sure to fund it. And if you can't fund it, that's fine. I understand that not everyone is in a position to do so, but you at least need to acknowledge credit about where the work is coming from. Because in acknowledging credit about where the work is coming from, and this doesn't just apply to me, this applies to any independent journalist, because this is not an easy field to be in. It is not easy to go on your own. It is not easy to opt out of being part of an organization or I have no one taking care of my bills. I am the only one that's taking care of them. Me and my husband. That's it. I don't have any organization that can back me up with lawyers. I don't have any organization that has my back. I don't even have insurance without my husband having a normal job, okay? And so I'm saying this because people really need to understand that if I'm saying I am really sick of people stealing my work and not giving me credit, there is a reason for it. And every single time that conservatives come out and demand that you work for them for free, and then demand that they be allowed to steal your work, and then get pissed off when you say, have you signed up for my website? It's $8 a month. And they go, oh, so you're only in this for the money? That's always what their response is. So you're only in this for the money. Yes, bitch. I took days off of my life to go put myself in danger around 400 socialists, pay $3,000 out of my own pocket to do it, not knowing if I would get anything out of it because I didn't know the president of the American Library Association was going to be there. I had no idea going into it if I was going to get anything out of it at all. And I still did all of it just for the money, because being an independent journalist is oh so lucrative when I was making $8,000 a day as a corporate trainer. So I really want to be clear about that, guys. This is not a joke. If you don't support independent journalists, and then on top of not supporting independent journalists, you demand that they work for you for free without any credit for what they're doing, then you are going to kill independent journalism, because there is no reason to do it otherwise. And conservatives do this crap all the time. And then they wonder. I have been an activist in this space since the beginning of 2020. Almost every single activist that I know has quit because They couldn't make it work financially. Do you have any idea how many serious, real, boots on the ground activists have quit the space entirely because they couldn't make they couldn't make it work financially. They were doing all their activism on top of having a full-time job, and they couldn't make it work because people wouldn't donate to support what they're doing. We are losing because people demand that we do everything for them for free and then thank them for the privilege of being able to work for them for free. And it's not fair. If you are not supporting the independent journalists in the space and the activists, and I mean, we're not even asking a lot. Like I said, I ask for $8 a month if you appreciate what I'm doing. And if you can't afford that, I understand. I really, really do. But share my work. Tag me in it so people know where it's coming from. Put URLs to my Substack, not the people who are stealing at other places. Actually direct people to my work. Every single person can do this. Every single person can do this, and not just for me, but for any independent journalist, any content creator. If you guys want us to keep doing this, then you have to do right by us, because I'm sorry, I put myself in very real danger for like 3 days to get you this content. And I'm happy to do it. And I'm happy to break it down, and I'm happy to explain it. What I'm not happy to do is give in to the assholes on the internet who demand I do it for free. So on that note, if you do appreciate the work I'm doing, the very best way that you can support it is by heading over to my Substack, which is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Again, that is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. You can always sign up for free. But if you want to support the work I'm doing, it is $8 a month or $80 a year. And you can sign up for a monthly or annual subscription on there. You can also sign up for a paying subscription on my locals community, on my Patreon community. You can make a one-time gift through my website, activelyunwoke.com/support. Though I hear there's something funky with the donation thing that I haven't looked into yet. I apologize for that. But there are any number of other ways you can support me. When you do, you get access to premium content on my Substack that is not freely available. You also get access to 2 Zoom calls with me every single week on Mondays and Wednesdays. We have Zoom calls on Mondays at 7 p.m. We have them on Wednesdays at noon. On Saturday this week, we're having our Bitchcraft call, which is Saturday at 3 p.m. That's going to be great. That's a little monthly thing that we do. And you get access to my supporter Discord and stuff like that as well. What is this about? I know you doctored the text? Bro, who the fuck are you? And what the hell are you talking about? I doctored text? From what? Be more specific in your accusations, bro, because I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, okay? Be specific in your accusations. Like, I love it. Like, this is conservatives right here. They come into my chat and they're like, I've always supported you, but I cannot support you anymore because you doctored text. What text did I doctor? We're going to get this out right now. What text did I doctor, bro? Let's see if he answers. What text are you alleging that I doctored? Because I have no effing clue what you're talking about now. Always something with conservatives. It's always something. And conservatives wonder why no one wants to work for them and no one wants to help them and they always lose. Oh, someone timed him out? Okay. I really wish someone hadn't done that because I would have liked to know what the F that person was talking about. Maybe he'll come back. Maybe he'll come back and explain. Anyway, so that's what you want to do if you want to support the work I'm doing. I really do appreciate the support, guys, because it is the thing that keeps me in business and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, maybe, Kino, maybe. I have some other things we're going to talk about today. The big thing we're going to talk about is I want to take a little bit of a break today, and I want to zone in on our buddy. No, he's been in the chat before. I just don't know what he's rambling about me doctoring text because I don't know what he's talking about. I have no idea. If you're going to make an accusation, come with the receipts because I have no effing idea what he's talking about. Anyway, what we're doing today. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like he used to come on the channel and now he's coming into the chat and making accusations, and I don't understand why that's happening. Anyway, so what we're doing today is, so one of the people I wanted to be a little bit more light today, just because I needed to just take it down for a moment. I've been really heavy in socialism for a while, and so I wanted to kind of take it down, but still be in the theme of our socialism. And so, as you guys know, surprise, I ran in to Wallace Shawn at the Socialism Conference. This is actually him. I snuck a picture, mostly because I wanted to zoom in on his badge to make sure that it was him, and it is him. I know you can't see it that much in this one, but it is absolutely definitely him. And what happened was, I was in this session and I look, and like in the row directly in front of me and off to the side is Wallace Shawn. And I was like, holy shit. And why this was funny was because my community had literally watched The Princess Bride for movie night like the week before. And I had said in the movie night where we watched it, I was like, I know Wallace Shawn is a socialist. And I'm going to show you how I know he was a socialist, but I knew he was a socialist. I also knew he was connected with this particular socialist publishing group. And I was like, I wonder if he's actually going to be at the conference. And I was kind of just joking. I was like, wouldn't it be funny if Wallace Shawn was at this conference? That would be pretty effing hilarious. And then he was at the conference, which was funny. And so what I thought we would watch today, the reason that I knew that Wallace Shawn was a socialist is he literally, and I've known about this for a while, has a video on Haymarket Books YouTube channel called Why I Call Myself a Socialist. And so it's only about 30 minutes long. So it's a little bit shorter than the one we watched yesterday. And I thought that we would spend a little bit of time watching Wallace Shawn explain why he's a socialist and what about the ideology appeals to him. Does everyone think that's a fun idea? I think that's an interesting idea. And so we'll have to see what's going on there. Mount the like button if you guys would be so kind, if you appreciate that. And guys, there's a shocking disparity between the number of people who are watching right now and the number of people who have mounted that like button for me. So please, guys, mounting the like button is free. It doesn't cost you anything. You can, if you don't want to mount the like button, you can do whatever you want to it. You can caress it. You can shake its hand. You can, I don't know, put your arm around it. I don't know, whatever you want to do to the like button is fine with me. Just don't smash it. We're not hooligans on this channel, all right? But do something to the like button, because mounting the like button lets YouTube know that you're enjoying the content and you want more people to come and join us. We're bringing more friends into the equation. But before we get into that, I have a really exciting and important socialist update. And you guys are going to be so excited. I know I was really excited. Hang on. Has to do with Sophie. Who knows who Sophie is? Sophie Lewis. I know there's a lot of people in this picture because this is a picture that I took. Sophie Lewis is our redheaded vixen right there with the mask and the sunglasses. And Sophie Lewis is the ginger dragon. Yes, the ginger dragon. Exactly. Sophie is our favorite abolish the family activist. Sophie has written 2 books about abolishing the family. We have watched probably more Sophie Lewis than like any non-socialist ever have watched. Sophie has been a staple on Socialism Saturday. We appreciate her work because she actually speaks relatively clearly. She's much more clear than most socialists. And her arguments are that she wants to abolish the biological nuclear family. This is what she's working towards every single day. And so we've been watching Sophie's content for a really long time. And I was so excited to see Sophie at the Socialism Conference. There were 2 sessions that she presented, one on abolish the family with, oh, okay, hang on. We've got some answers. No, I didn't lie about Mike Harlow, bro. No, I didn't lie at all. That is bullshit. You've met Mike. So here's what happened. You met Mike Harlow and he came up and gave you a hug and said nice things to you. And then you said he's the most, Mike Harlow is one of the most disingenuous assholes on the planet, bro. Like, just because you had a positive encounter with Mike Harlow means absolutely nothing. I like, so bro. I'm going to make it real simple for you. There were no doctored text. I don't even know how to doctor text if I wanted to. If you think I doctored text messages, it is because Mike Harlow lied to you, motherfucker. So, American legend, it's been real, but you're not. You are no longer welcome. Like, go away. Did someone like block him already? Like, I seriously, this is 2 years later and Mike Harlow is still spinning this bullshit. And the reason, buddy, that Mike Harlow is spinning this bullshit is because I am the most successful thing that Mike Harlow has ever done. Smearing me on the internet and going 15 years into my history and smearing and doxing my college boyfriend is quite literally the most successful thing that Mike Harlow has ever done in his sad, pathetic life. So, American legend, I'm sorry. You've just proven to me, buddy, that you are not smart enough to be a member of my audience. Guys, I do have a strict IQ requirement on my channel. You need to have an IQ of at least a 100 to be in my audience. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. Exactly, Jan. Mike Harlow is a trash human being. Trash human being. Hang on. We're going to get back to Sophie in a second because I do really have an important Sophie update. Yeah, people here know the deal. All right, guys. Now that we have that out of the way, let's get back to Sophie. Because Sophie, Brian, if you don't know who Mike Harlow is, don't worry about it. It's really not even, don't even worry about it. So now let's get back to Sophie, because this is what's actually important. So I have watched more Sophie content than almost anyone on the internet, right? And I was so excited to see her at the Socialism Conference. And I even tweeted at Sophie. I said that she looked very pretty when she wasn't wearing a mask at the Socialism Conference. And I really, if I had been able to out myself at the Socialism Conference, I would have bought Sophie's book and got her to sign them. I'm actually serious about that. I really wanted, I so wanted to do this so bad. I so wanted to go to the bookstore and buy copies of Sophie's book and then get her to sign the books. But I was afraid that she would recognize me because she didn't know who I was. And so I ended up posting this on Twitter. And then I discovered, very sadly, that Sophie had blocked me on Twitter. And I was so upset about this. I didn't know what to do. I was like, no, Sophie, come back. I'm such a fan. Please don't block me on Twitter. No. But I have an important Sophie update. Because guess who I spent an hour today talking to on Instagram? I spent an hour DMing on Instagram with Sophie herself, the ginger dragon, because I DM'd her after I discovered that she blocked me on Twitter. And I said, Sophie, I understand why you blocked me on Twitter. It was probably the smart thing to do if I'm honest about it, but I'm really not targeting you. And I really do want you on my channel. I swear, Sophie, I'm not trying to paint you unfairly. I really would love for you to come and explain your ideas to us. And Sophie was a little hesitant, but she answered me back. She did. And then we had, I think, a good, productive conversation. And Sophie wants to make it very, very, very clear that Sophie and I are not in solidarity, okay? Sophie and I are not in cahoots. Sophie and I are not in solidarity. Sophie and I are not comrades. Because she doesn't want to get in trouble with her socialist friends. So I'll make it very clear. We're not friends. We're not comrades. We're not in solidarity. We're not any of these things. But we did have a very reasonable conversation. We did. And as a result of that very reasonable conversation, Sophie has unblocked me on Twitter. And I was very grateful that Sophie unblocked me on Twitter. And she's thinking about coming on the channel. So what we're going to do is I promised Sophie that if she came on the channel and just talked to us about her ideas, she could say whatever she wanted, and we weren't going to be mean, and we were going to treat her civilly with respect and dignity, and we weren't going to attack her, and we weren't going to cancel mob her, and we were going to like provide a welcoming environment, and anyone who was attacking her or acting out of sorts was going to get banned. So what I need everyone to do is to send Sophie love. We really want her to come on the channel. We really, really, really want her to talk to us. It would be great. Even Joshua's excited about this. So thank you, Sophie, for keeping an open mind. We appreciate you. And we can't wait to have you on the channel. Not in solidarity. We are not in solidarity, Sophie. I know that, okay? I know, but that doesn't mean we can't be civil, all right? So maybe that'll happen. Fingers crossed. And I really, really mean it. All right, guys, let's get into our main event. But first, I have to acknowledge this super chat from Jan Velasquez Christensen. Thank you. I don't know what currency that's in, but I appreciate it. I'm a Christian conservative and I want to support the work you do. I doubt we will ever unite and fight the left. You're not a collective or even a large organized community. Well, no, I'm not. Our community is our family, our neighbors, and our church congregation. I mean, I think that we can all push back against the cultural revolution in our own way. And I think that we all have a role to play. And so I do appreciate the support. I really, really, really do. And I hope that you guys are able to work together to push back on the left. And if there's ways for us to align, then let's align. And if there aren't, that's cool too, man. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone has their own thing. Let's see. I have another super chat from Naruto. Naruto, just curious, have you been keeping up with the Ukrainian Nazi spy January 6th Twitter thread Laura Loomer has been updating over the past few days? No, I have not been, Naruto. I'll be honest. Laura Loomer has been on the very bottom of my priority list lately. Not that I don't appreciate Laura Loomer. She's a psychopath. She's a psycho, but she's our psycho, and sometimes you got to take what you can get. But I've been paying attention to Naruto. Thank you, though, for the super chat. All right, guys, let's get into it. We are going to learn why Wallace Shawn is a socialist. And this is only about a half-hour long video, but I think it's going to be worth watching. And we're just going to see what's what. So guys, mount that like button for me if you haven't already. Let's piece apart why Vizzini is a socialist.
Myself a socialist. In most reasonably large towns in the United States and Europe,
it's so quiet. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. We all have to work together. I'm turning my microphone volume down, and everyone has to turn their personal volume up. I cannot control. Socialists have issues with volume control, just the way it is. But I'm turning my microphone down, and now everyone else turn their personal volume up.
You can find on some important public square or street a professional theater. And so in various quiet neighborhoods in these towns, you can usually also find some rather quiet individuals, the actors who work regularly in that theater. Individuals whose daily lives center around lawns and cars and cooking and shopping and occasionally the athletic events of children, but who surprisingly at night put on the robes of kings and wizards, witches and queens, and for their particular community, they temporarily embody the darkest needs and loftiest hopes of the human species. The actor's role in the community is quite unlike anyone else's. Businessman, for example.
Oh no. He's going to say that he's a socialist because he's an actor? Oh no, Wallace, come on. This is going to be such the stereotypical thing. God, I feel like my microphone volume is probably much louder. This is going to be such the stereotypical thing that like starving artists can't be artists. without being socialist to support them. That's why he's Wallace. I'm disappointed. I thought you would have had a much better reason than that.
Example, don't take their clothes off or cry in front of strangers in the course of their work. Actors do. Contrary to the popular misconception, the actor is not necessarily a specialist in imitating or portraying what he knows about other people. On the contrary, the actor may simply be a person who's more willing than others to reveal some truths about himself. Interestingly, the actress, who in her own persona may be gentle, shy, and socially awkward, someone whose hand trembles when pouring a cup of tea for a visiting friend, can convincingly portray an elegant, cruel aristocrat tossing off malicious epigrams in an 18th century chocolate house. On stage, her hand doesn't shake when she pours the cup of chocolate, nor does she hesitate when passing along the vilest gossip about her closest friends. The actress's next door neighbors, who may not have had the chance to see her perform, might say that the person they know could never have been under any circumstances either elegant or cruel. But she knows the truth, that in fact she could have been either or both. And when she plays her part, she's simply showing the audience what she might have been if she'd in fact been an aristocrat in a chocolate house in the 18th century. We are not what we seem. We are more than what we seem. The actor knows that. And because the actor knows that hidden inside himself there's a wizard and a king, he also knows that when he's playing himself in his daily life, he's playing a part. He's performing, just as he's performing when he's on stage in a play.
Hang on, I just want to acknowledge Jen. Jen is saying a Vizzini in a Marx disguise saying inconceivable would be a funny shirt. Well, there's lots of funny shirts. I do appreciate the idea, Jen. You'd think more artists would be staunch capitalists because capitalism is what allows our art to perpetuate. Listen, man, art is going to die under socialism. I don't know why these people don't understand this. You're not going to be assigned a job as an artist in a socialist society. Like, these people think they're going to have to they're going to get assigned a job in the field or something, and they're going to have to do that for a couple hours a day, and then the rest of the time they get to be artists. And listen, man, I appreciate art as much as the next person, but art only gets created when people buy the art. Art only has the value that people are willing to pay for it. And if people are not willing to fund the art, then you can't perpetuate more art. The funding of the art creates more supplies for it to because you purchase the supplies or what you need the supplies to create the art. There's not going to be a plethora of art supplies in the socialist economy either. You're going to have very basic paints and paintbrushes and things like that. You're not going to have anything fancy. You're not going to have as many tools to work with. You're not going to have as much time to do it. And really, what do you do with the art once you create it? You give it away? Why? It just makes no sense at all. Only political art will persist because political art will reinforce the ideology.
Play. He knows that when he's on stage performing, he's in a sense deceiving his friends in the audience less than he does in daily life, not more. Because on stage, he's disclosing the parts of himself that in daily life he struggles to hide. He knows, in fact, that the role of himself is actually a rather small part, and that when he plays that part, he must make an enormous effort to conceal the whole universe of possibilities.
Well, Autumn is our pet socialist. Everyone is allowed to bully Autumn if they want to. Autumn says most artists don't make it because they have to spend their lives working some unrelated job to pay living expenses. No, Autumn, that's not the reason they don't make it. They don't make it because they are not smart about how they set up their business. You have to be smart. First of all, if you're going to make art, you have to have some sort of discernible talent, which means that you have to make things that people want to pay money for. And I'm not necessarily talking like mass market things. There are artists that only paid a couple paintings in a month. But guess what? They sell those paintings for tens of thousands of dollars because they only paint a couple of those paintings in a month, and that's how they perpetuate their business. They're not selling them for a couple $100s if you're only producing a couple things a month. So you have to have a product that someone is going to want to pay a lot of money for. You also want to figure out different ways to sell your art so it's not just the original painting. You want to do limited edition prints, maybe like G clays or like dye sublimations or things like that. You want to make sure that you have different price points that people can buy into and replicate your art either like on like you can get it print on demand on a canvas, you can put it on a t-shirt, like make something cool that people want to wear, make something that like on a cell phone case or like a mug. I sell a metric ton of mugs in my merch store. So you have to figure out ways to merchandise your art so that you're giving multiple ways for people to buy it. If all you're doing is creating shitty art in your free time that you're not putting out there and that no one wants to buy anyway because it's shitty art, you are going to fail. That's just the way it is. But if you make a product that people want to buy and you merchandise that product correctly, then you can absolutely make a living as an artist and you can build it up over time, work your full-time job, and then come home and build up different branches of your business until maybe you have enough like resources and customers and stuff like that where you can do it full time. That's the way the world works, Autumn. No such thing as a free lunch.
That exists inside him. Actors are treated as uncanny beings by non-actors because of the strange voyage into themselves that actors habitually make, traveling outside the small territory of traits that are seen by their daily acquaintances as them. Actors, in contrast, look at non-actors with a certain bewilderment and secretly think what an odd life those people lead. Doesn't it get a bit?
I love this so much, online subscriber. I love this. Art communicates a cool idea. Artist must be bourgeois. I love it. I'm wearing my Be Bourgeois t-shirt today. You can get your Be Bourgeois t-shirt in the Unwoke Art store, unwokeart.com.
Claustrophobic? It's commonly noted that we all come into the world naked. And at the beginning of each day, most of us find ourselves naked once again in that strange suspended moment before we put on our clothes. In various religions, priests put on their clothes quite solemnly according to a ritual.
Hang on. So I've got a lot of people saying in the chat something about Hunter Biden. What Hunter Biden does or does not do has no impact at all over what you do. Is Hunter Biden's art career based on who he is and who he knows? Absolutely. Hunter Biden's art sucks. Hunter Biden's art right now, I have a freaking Dali on my wall. I have a Salvador Dali on my wall, like right there. Hunter Biden's art is selling for more than a fucking Dali right now, an original Dali. So no, like it's selling more than you can get original Picassos, you can get Goyas, you can get, I mean, pretty much like any of like the classic artists, you can buy originals, maybe not like the most famous pieces, but you can buy original art from them for less than what is currently going on with Hunter Biden's art. So Hunter Biden's art is bullshit. But regardless, that doesn't mean that normal people can't make a living as an artist if they have the ability and the and they are smart about how they're doing it. Listen, guys, like I run a merchandise store right now. I'm not saying I'm a classically trained artist. I'm not. Like I can paint and I can draw and I can do stuff like that, but it takes a lot of time for me to do it. So what am I doing? I'm building my merch store off of AI. You can even do that. And if you're smart about it and you take the time to make sure you're doing the AI correctly and you're like, like editing like where you need to and doing touch-ups and all that stuff, you can make really cool digital art that you can sell on merchandise to build a whole online business. You don't even have to have an inventory or anything like that. So don't worry so much about what Hunter Biden's doing. It doesn't make a difference. The point is that you have to be smart and you have to be strategic. Socialists don't want to be smart and strategic. Socialists want all the free time in the world to be an artist, to be an artist, to be an artist. They like, and it's just like, you know what? You have to at some point have a practical plan with which to create the money to be able to perpetuate the art. Yeah, Crystal, my daughter is an artist. She tattoos to pay the bills and has her own art studio, like tattoo artists. I mean, that's a great example, right? Needing business sense as an artist is so important, and Vasha would know about that because she has business sense as an artist. Exactly. And it's not even that hard, guys. It's just a matter of acknowledging that you can end up making a lot of money if you're smart about how you do it, right? You can make it a full-time job. It takes work, don't get me wrong, but like you can make a lot of money doing stuff like that if it's what you want to do. I guess my point though is that socialists don't want to do any of that. They just want the world to give them the time to be an artist. That's not the way the world works.
Policemen, soldiers, janitors, and hotel maids get up in the morning, get dressed, go to work, go to their locker rooms, remove their clothes, and get dressed again in their respective uniforms. The actor goes to the theater, goes to his dressing room, and puts on his costume. And as he does so, he remembers the character he's going to play, how the character feels, how the character speaks. The actor in costume looks in the mirror, and it all comes back to him.
And I want to say this too, and I promise I'm going to stop interrupting, but I want to say this too. Pretty much every great artist that has ever made it and is a name that you would know and has a print that you would buy or something like that, they all struggled through the same thing. There is a reason that the starving artist trope is what it is, because a lot of artists struggled to make money, a lot of them in life, and then they became famous after they died, and that's really, really sad. But there are a lot of art, like I'm thinking like Peter Max. Peter Max became an art, like was working in like advertising and then became an artist after that. Peter Max is one of the most prolific artists that like has existed in over decades. And so it's like every single person who makes it big as an artist probably at some point has to have a real job that they work to be able to fund their art. And then as they continue to build and continue to get better and better and better and sell more and more and more, then they're able to give up the full-time job and be the artist full-time. But like, don't tell me that our system doesn't perpetuate art because it's the only thing that ever has perpetuated art. And what happens when you really develop, like I'm thinking like Create. So Create is the guy I have on my wall here. That's a Create. I have 2 original Creates downstairs. So Create, like, not only does art, he started as a tattoo artist. So that's how he funded his art, which is he was a tattoo artist. And then he was like just painting, and he was painting. He started selling these paintings. And then he took the paintings, and actually one of the paintings that I have, one of the original paintings that I have is a piece of merchandise that he's selling. So he took his paintings and now he's merchandising it. He's got all sorts of prints. He's got dye sublimations. He's got G clays. He's got all this stuff that you can buy his art on anything. And he started as someone who had a full-time job and then worked his way up because he wanted to be an artist full-time. That is what you have to do. And that is what capitalism allows you to do. Capitalism allows you to take a painting and sell it on a t-shirt. It allows you to take a painting and sell it on a sticker or a phone case or any other thing or a print of that painting. Like, and do you think you're going to be able to do that in a socialist society? That just makes no sense. James Jones says, real artist work gets more expensive when they die. Hunter Biden's works will plummet in value when his father dies. Oh, ain't that the truth, James Jones? Hunter Biden's works are never going to be more valuable than they are right now. And they're not very good. They suck. Some of them are actually better than I thought they would be, to be quite frank, but like they're not very good.
When the actor steps onto the stage to begin the play, he wants to convince the audience that what they're seeing is not a play, but reality itself. The costume that the actor wears, and the voice, the diction, the accent, the way of speaking that begin to return to the actor when he puts on his costume are devices designed to set in motion a capacity possessed by every member of the audience, a special human capacity whose existence as part of our genetic makeup is what makes theater possible. That is, our capacity to believe what we want and need to believe about any person who is not ourself. Because let's be frank, other people are not me. And people who are not me will always, in a way, be alien to me. They'll always, in a way, be strangers to me. And I will never know with any certainty what they're like. So, yes, it's possible to believe a fantasy about them. Now, I've never met my own genes or looked at them under a microscope, but nonetheless, I feel I can make some guesses about what they're like. One thing I feel I know is that I'm amazingly responsive to visual cues about other people, and I'm prepared to guess that this is characteristic of our entire species. And this is why people who can afford it spend enormous sums of money on haircuts and clothes. And this is why films, which deal in close ups, put an enormous amount of attention on makeup and hair. And this is why actors in plays take their costumes very, very seriously. It's all because people really do believe what visual cues say. A haircut dramatically changes how we see a person. A haircut can say, I'm intelligent, disciplined, precise, and dynamic. A different haircut can say, I'm not very bright. I'm sort of a slob. I don't care what happens to me. I don't care what you think.
Hang on, I want to answer Benjamin's question. He's reading an essay that he wrote in a book called Why I Call Myself a Socialist. So this is his essay that was published in a book about why he's a socialist. But this is what socialists always do. They're not able to kind of like speak off the cuff. I mean, I'm sure some of them can, but like they can't they always read their essays and their papers when they're giving a speech.
Think of me. There are haircuts that can say, I find sex an interesting subject. I'm interested in how I look. I'm rather fun. And I think life is great. And there are haircuts that say, I'm not interested in sex, and I think life is awful. Clothes work in a different way. While the shape of one's head is completed by one's hair describes personality, clothes tell us about a person's role in society. But there's an extraordinary similarity in the speed with which we respond to the cues from haircuts and from clothes, and in the strength of our belief that what they're telling us is true. So when the actor comes on stage in the costume of a king, I'm prepared to believe that he is a king. The actor on stage is living in reality. He knows that there is indeed a king inside him.
Murphy's Pool, we're learning why Vizzini is a socialist, and it has something to do with him being an actor. And he hasn't gotten to the point yet.
But he also knows very well that fate has made him an actor and not actually a king. The audience member looking at the actor on stage steps out of reality and lives in illusion until the curtain comes down. Our capacity to fantasize about other people and to believe our own fantasies makes it possible for us to enjoy this valuable art form, theater. But unfortunately, it's a capacity which has brought incalculable harm and suffering to human beings. It's well known what grief and even danger can result when we make use of this capacity in our romantic lives and
Oh
eagerly
my God.
ascribe to a potential partner benevolent characteristics which are based on our hopes and not on truth.
This is what socialists do. They try to bore us into not listening to what they're saying. This is why they win, because they make us so bored that we turn our minds off. But we don't buy into that, do we? Because we train ourselves to sit here and listen to what the socialist says. And that's when we hit the golden nuggets that end up on the internet going viral.
And one can hardly begin to describe the anguish caused by our habit of using our fantasizing capacity in the opposite direction. That is, using it to ascribe negative characteristics to people who, for one reason or another, we'd like to think less of. Sometimes we do this in regard to large groups of people, none of whom we've met. But we can even apply our remarkable capacity in relation to individuals or groups whom we know rather well, sometimes simply to make ourselves feel better about things that we happen to have done to them or are planning to do. You couldn't exactly say, for example, that Thomas Jefferson had no familiarity with dark-skinned people. His problem was that he couldn't figure out how to live the life he in fact was living unless he owned these people as slaves.
What are you talking about?
And
Thomas Jefferson wrote into the Declaration of Independence lines that were specifically meant to lay the groundwork to abolish slavery in the United States. These people have no concept of history. Thomas Jefferson wanted to get rid of slavery. George Washington wanted to get rid of slavery. They couldn't do it overnight, but they laid the groundwork in the founding documents of the country that they themselves were involved in the creation of to get rid of slavery. We are a more perfect union. We are not perfect. We will never be perfect. The goal is to be a more perfect union and to get better and better and better. And they always knew that slavery had to be abolished. They always knew that. That's why they wrote the founding documents the way they did, to lay the groundwork for it. Yeah, if they had a concept of history, they wouldn't be socialists because they would know that they would be the first ones put against the wall.
as it would have been unbearable to him to see himself as so heartless, unjust, and cruel as to keep in bondage people who were just like himself, he ignored the evidence that was in front of his eyes and clung to the fantasy that people from Africa were not his equals. Well, one could write an entire political history of the human race by simply recounting the exhausting cycle of fantasies which different groups have believed at different times about different other groups. Of course, these fantasies were absurd in every case. After a while, one does grasp the pattern. Africans, Jews, Mexicans, same-sex lovers, women. After a certain period of time, somebody says, well, actually, they're not that different from anybody else. They have the same capacities. I don't like all of them. Some of them are geniuses, etc., etc. The revelations are always in the same direction. We learn about one group or another the thing that actors quickly learn in relation to themselves when they become actors. People are more than they seem to be. We're all rather good at seeing through last year's fantasies and moving on, and rather proud of it, too. Oh, yes, after voting for Barack Obama, we took a marvelous vacation in Vietnam. We went to a reading of the poetry of Octavio Paz with our friends, the Goldsteins, and we saw Ellen DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi there. They looked fantastic. Whatever. It's this year's fantasies that present a difficulty.
What does this have to do with socialism,
Are
Wallace?
we more brilliant than Thomas Jefferson?
No, you're not.
Probably not.
No. Good.
So there's our situation. It's delightfully easy to see through illusions held by people far away or by members of one's own group a century ago or a decade ago or a year ago. But this doesn't seem to help us to see through the illusions which at any given moment happen to be shared by the people who surround us, our friends, our family, the people we trust. Around 400,000 babies are born on Earth each day. Some are born irreparably damaged, casualties of the conditions in which their mothers lived, malnutrition, polluted
Oh,
water,
okay, okay.
mysterious.
Okay. So babies are born sometimes into poor families through no fault of their own, and it's capitalism that made their families poor. And wouldn't it be a more fair and just world if everyone had equal access to all of the same resources and all the same benefits? Because in a world based on capitalism, people have unequal lives, and that is unfair. And that's why he's a socialist, apparently. Sandy says all socialists should be required to read Gulag Archipelago. Yes, they should. I still haven't read all of Gulag Archipelago. I'm working my way through it though. I'm listening to the audiobook, but it's a Gulag Archipelago is a big read. but it's important, and it is an important book to read or listen to, as the case may be. And there's a lot of wisdom in it. And socialist Autumn, have you read Gulag Archipelago? I don't want to hear from you anymore, Autumn, until you've read Gulag Archipelago and can provide us with an essay on what it says.
Chemicals that sneak into the body and warp the genes. But the much more tragic and more horrible truth is that most of these babies are born healthy. There's nothing wrong with them. Every one of them is ready to develop into a person whose intelligence, insight, aesthetic taste, and love of other people could help to make the world a better place.
Yes.
Every one of them is ready to become a person who wakes up happily in the morning because they know they're going to spend the day doing work they find fascinating, work that they love. They're born.
We don't always get to do work that we find fascinating and work that we love, even if you are blessed to be in a position of doing, work that you appreciate. I am very blessed that I don't have to go to a real job where I don't have to go work for other people, because I work for you guys on the internet creating content for you. And probably this is the very best situation for me because I can't work for other people. I can't. I'm way smarter than most people, and I'm smarter than every single boss I ever had, and that was always a problem. And I'll tell you that right now. And so it's better for me to work by myself. But even when you work for yourself, I'm gonna break the news to you guys. Even when you work for yourself and you generally do jobs that are nice, you still have to do shit you don't want to do. I have to do stuff I don't want to do every single day of the week. So you're not always going to do work that you find fascinating. And do you know where you're really not going to do work that you find fascinating? In a socialist society where you are assigned your job and you don't even get to pick out what you do, Wallace. If we were in a socialist world, I guarantee you Wallace Shawn would not be an actor. Wouldn't be allowed to do it. Absolutely. Wallace Shawn is not good for propaganda. I don't say that with any disrespect. But this is the face of the revolution? No, that wouldn't work, because the only movies and TV shows that are going to be produced in the socialist society are going to be socialist propaganda to reinforce the socialist world. And I'm sorry, this is just not the look of the revolution. It's just not.
With all the genetic gifts they could possibly need. Wiggling beside their mothers, they have no idea what's going to be done to them. In the old days of the Soviet 5-year plans, the planners tried to determine what ought to happen to the babies born under their jurisdiction. They would calculate how many managers the economy needed, how many researchers, how many factory workers, and the Soviet leaders would organize society in an attempt to channel the right number of people into each category. In most of the world today, the invisible hand of the global market performs this function. I've sometimes noted that many people in my generation, born during World War II,
I knew he
are
was a hippie
obsessed as I
socialist.
am by the image of the train.
I knew he was a hippie socialist. I said this yesterday on the stream. There were basically, at the Socialism Conference, there were basically like two types of socialists. Well, two major groups of socialists. There were people that didn't fall into either group, but like there was like the hippie socialist that like the kind of like anti-war kind of like hippie that became a socialist during like the 60s and 70s because they were anti-war, and that was like, it's that type of socialist. And then you have the socialists that became socialists in like the 90s and the 2000s that are revolutionary Antifa socialists. I said yesterday Wallace Shawn was a hippie socialist, like an old school socialist. These are not people that we really need to be afraid of, I don't think. Um Although I was like like looking at video yesterday from the conference that I didn't get to see because it was like live streamed, and there were definitely like older revolutionary socialists, which I thought was interesting. I hadn't seen that actually at the conference. But Wallace Shawn is a hippie socialist that became a socialist like before the 80s.
Trains arriving at the railroad station at Auschwitz, and the way that the SS officers who greeted the trains would perform on the spot what was called a selection, choosing a few of those getting off of each train to be slave laborers who would get to live for as long as they were needed, while everyone else would be sent to the gas chambers almost immediately. And just as inexorable as were these selections are the determinations made by the global market when babies are born.
Are you
The global
serious?
market selects out a tiny group of privileged babies who
Are you serious? Wallace Shawn just said that capitalism is literally Hitler. He just said that capitalism is literally Hitler. That's hilarious. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me go back. Okay, basically what he just said is that in World War II, when people were getting off the trains at Auschwitz, which I'm not making light of, I'm not making light of World War II. No one flame me on the internet. He said that when people got off the trains at Auschwitz, that some of them were sent to their death in the gas chamber and some of them were sent to be laborers in the field, and it was like basically like luck of the draw. And then he said babies born today experience the same thing, because babies born today might be born into rich families or they might be born into poor families. He literally said that capitalism is literally Hitler.
In most of the world today, the invisible hand of the global market performs this function. I've sometimes noted that many people in my generation, born during World War II, are obsessed as I am by the image of the trains arriving at the railroad station at Auschwitz, and the way that the SS officers who greeted the trains would perform on the spot what was called a selection, choosing a few of those getting off of each train to be slave laborers who would get to live for as long as they were needed, while everyone else would be sent to the gas chambers almost immediately. And just as inexorable as were these selections are the determinations made by the global market when babies are born.
See,
The
literally
global
Hitler.
market selects out a tiny group of privileged babies who are born in certain parts of certain towns in certain countries, and these babies are allowed to live privileged lives. Some will be scientists, some will be bankers, Some will command, rule, and grow fantastically rich, and others will become more modestly paid intellectuals or teachers or artists. But all the members of this tiny group will have the chance to develop their minds and realize their talents. As for all the other babies, the market sorts them and stamps labels onto them and hurls them violently into various pits where an appropriate
These people pretend that no one ever overcomes an impoverished birth and an impoverished upbringing to go on to build empires. In fact, most of the people who, like, maybe not most, but there is a good percentage of people who build really successful businesses that are born into. Have these people never heard of Oprah? I'm sorry. Oprah was born into like a shack without running water where she was sexually abused by her family. And she went on to found one of the most giant media conglomerates of all time, is one of the most famous women in history, is one of the most wealthy women in history, and she was born into a shack that didn't even have running water. Sometimes when people are born into impoverished situations, that is what is required to mold them into the people that start huge businesses. That's just the way it goes, because you learn how to overcome adversity. You become resilient. You become able to take on anything when you live in. And I'm not suggesting that like people should wish for this or anything, but like there's a whole there like Benjamin Franklin was born into poverty. Ben Carson, Thomas Sowell, Andrew Carnegie, Jack Kirby, John Rockefeller, Abraham Lincoln, for crying out loud, Steve Jobs. There are so many people that have been born into impoverished situations that have gone on to build empires. Not literal empires, Autumn, but like businesses, become successful politicians, become president of the United States. Like it happens all the time. So why are these people acting as though being born into an impoverished situation dooms people to being in poverty forever? No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. It doesn't. And on the same note, some people who are born into wealth piss that money away and end up in impoverished situations because they never appreciated what they had in the first place. That's the way of the world.
upbringing and preparation are waiting for them. If the market thinks that workers will be needed in electronics factories, 100,000 babies will be stamped with the label factory worker and thrown down into a certain particular pit.
No baby is stamped with a job upon birth. Are you kidding me? This is how socialists think. They think that like babies are the only reality in which babies would be assigned jobs upon their birth is a socialist society. Because you don't get to choose your job in a socialist society. Your job is assigned to you. And if you don't do your job, you don't eat.
And when the moment comes when one of the babies is fully prepared and old enough to work, she'll crawl out of the pit and she'll find herself standing at the gate of a factory in India or in China or in Mexico. And she'll stand at her workstation for 16 hours a day. She'll sleep in the factory's dormitory. She won't be allowed.
He is literally describing socialism. He is literally describing socialism right now, and he doesn't realize that he's literally describing socialism.
To speak to her fellow workers. She'll have to ask for permission to go to the bathroom. She'll be subjected to the sexual whims of her boss, and she'll be breathing fumes day and night that will make her ill and lead to her death at an early age. And when she's died, one will be able to say about her that she worked like a nurse, not to benefit herself, but to benefit others. Except that a nurse works to benefit the sick, while the factory worker will have worked to benefit the owners of her factory. She will have devoted.
The factory worker or anyone that accepts a job in exchange for a salary. Except under socialism, you don't get a salary under socialism. You get to eat, right? But when you accept a job working for someone else, you negotiate a salary in return for the services that you provide to that person. No one is forcing you to take that job. No one's forcing you to accept that salary. You are perfectly capable of going out if you want to start. There is no better time in the history of humanity to start your own business. Socialists don't want you to know this. There is no better time in the history of humanity to start your own business than right now. There are a million free resources. Free. You don't even need to pay for them to start your own business. Literally anyone can start a merchandise company right now using AI to create your stuff, setting up an online storefront, which you can do for free, do print on demand so you don't have to have an inventory. And if you come up with good ideas and cool merch, then people will buy it. And you can do that right now. You can start a Substack and get people to sign up for your writing because they value your work and your content. It's one of the ways I make money. It's one of my primary income streams right now, and it's completely for free. You don't have to pay any money for it. There are a million different ways that you can start an online, you can teach classes online, teach what you know, teach skills that you have that people might find valuable. You can make money on Twitter right now. You can go grift on Twitter. Go learn from the Krasensteins because they do Twitter spaces about it every single day. Go learn from the Krasensteins how to grift on Twitter to make ad money on Twitter. It's really not that hard to be a grifter on Twitter. If you want to be a grifter on Twitter, I promise you. The Krasensteins literally built an empire on being a reply guy on Twitter. There are a million different things you can do right now for free to create your own business if you don't want to go to work for someone else. That's just the way it goes. These people never stop with the I don't know what that word is, but because the revolution is their greatest good and they need to make people feel bad to be motivated for revolution. Oh, well, yeah, that's it. Exactly right. That's exactly right. They want people to believe that this is going to be like the only way to be fair and just and beautiful for everyone. But really, just everyone's going to be working out in a field somewhere, and that's just going to be what it is. Everyone is an owner of the business Me Inc. Yes. And I'm going to be honest, guys. If you don't have some sort of side hustle, please start a side hustle. You can do anything. You can design stuff in Canva. You can build websites. You can write books, write a Substack, write poems, write content. You can make merchandise. You can start your own consulting business. You can give speeches. I used to make a metric ton of money giving keynote speeches. Like, that was my primary source of income, was literally getting up in front of a room and talking to people. And that was how I made my money. Okay, you can all do this. Okay, it takes practice. I worked for years to get really good at giving keynote speeches, right? So it does take practice. It's not something you can just like snap a finger and do. But please start some sort of side hustle, because I promise you, if something ever happens with your quote unquote real job, you're going to be so excited you had a side hustle. And like, if you build the side hustle up over time, that can become your real primary income. And I promise you, if you can build one business, you can build more businesses after that. Yeah. Do an Etsy with digital downloads. Create resources for people to help them. So many things you can do. So many people are making so much money on the internet that are selling things that are probably not as good as what you can do. So don't be afraid to try it, you know?
Devoted her hours, her consideration, her energy and strength to increasing their wealth. She will have lived and died for that.
Hang on. What fields did I do keynote speeches in? So I was a corporate trainer, organizational psychologist. I wrote this here book called Zen Your Work, Create Your Ideal Work Experience Through Mindful Self. This is actually my review copy. This wasn't even the official copy of my book. This is my review copy of the book. This came out a couple years ago. So I was doing like corporate training and keynote speeches at like HR conferences and like a lot of professional development conferences, like I did accounting, like I did a lot of work in the accounting industry for some reason, the marketing industry, like places like that, like motivational stuff. And so you can buy my book, Zen Your Work, on Amazon still to this day. That's what I did. And I still do corporate work every once in a while. I still do like psychological assessments and stuff. I just don't talk about it that much because it gets me in trouble on the internet, but I still do that stuff. I like doing that stuff. It's fun.
And it's not that anyone sadly concluded when she was born that she lacked the talent to become, let's say, a violinist, a conductor, or perhaps another Beethoven. The reason she was sent to the factory and not to the concert hall was not that she lacked ability, but that the market wanted workers, and so she was one of the ones who was assigned to be one. And during the period when all the babies who are born have been sorted into their different categories and labeled, during the period when you could say that they're being nourished in their pens until they're ready to go to work, they're all assigned appropriate costumes. And once they know what costume they'll wear, each individual is given an accent, a way of speaking.
Are you kidding me? Kino, thank you. We no longer need art school to teach digital arts. We have open source software to create just about anything, including a porcupine with an AR-15. Exactly, guys. If you need to learn how to do something, there's probably a free class out there to teach you how to do it. There's probably free videos on the internet, free videos on Udemy, or really low cost stuff like $10 or something like that. If you really needed a skill and you came across like a $10 class to teach you that skill and you're like, "Man, I don't really want to pay for this," but it's $10 and you can make thousands of dollars if you have that skill. Isn't that worth it? You just have to be smart and resourceful. Everything you need is already out there.
Some characteristic personality traits and a matching body type. And each person's face starts slowly to specialize in certain expressions which coordinate well with their personality, body type, and costume. And so each person comes to understand what role he will play. And so each can consistently select and reproduce through all the decades and changes of fashion the appropriate style and wardrobe for the rest of his life. Even those who were selected out from the general group have our role and our costume. I happen to play a semi-prosperous, fortunate bohemian, not doing too badly, nor too magnificently. And as I walk out onto the street on a sunny day, dressed in my fortunate bohemian costume, I pass, for example, the burly cop on the beat. I pass the weedy professor in his rumpled jacket, distractedly ruminating as he shambles along. I see couples in elegant suits briskly rushing to their meetings. I see the art student and the law student. And in the background, sometimes looming up as they come a bit closer, those not particularly selected out. The drugstore cashier in her oddly matched pink shirt and green slacks. The wacky street hustler with his crazy dialect and his crazy gestures. The wisecracking truck drivers with their round bellies and leering grins.
Look at him shitting on cashiers and truck drivers and like maids, the domestic worker. Bro, in your socialist revolution, do you know how many truck drivers you're going to need? Do you really think that truck drivers are not going to be a key part of the socialist revolution? And you know what's funny too? Truck drivers, especially, maybe not cashiers, and I don't know about like domestic workers or anything like that, but truck drivers can make a pretty decent salary. truck drivers are not like, I mean, if they work really hard, it's not a job I would want to be driving around, but like truck drivers can make an okay salary. Like truck drivers are not the unselected, like poor, delusional, like bro, why are you shitting on truck driver? He's an actor that doesn't know that truck drivers actually get paid like an okay salary, like a decent salary. Truck drivers can make more money than my father made when I was growing up, I'll tell you that. Yeah, Victor just texted me. He says a lot of truck drivers are owner-operators and own their own truck, which is the bourgeois. Truck drivers are the fucking bourgeois, bro.
The grim-faced domestic worker who slipped out from her employer's house and now races into a shop to do an errand. And
Hang on, I just got a super chat, but yeah, this is like, it is really insulting to hardworking people to say like, you are just part of the unselected masses. You are, I mean, come on. It's so insulting to hardworking people. Emily says, I worked as an assistant manager in a grocery store. And so, yeah, assistant manager at a grocery store, make decent money. Thank you, Emily. Nick says, I made $90K last year driving a truck. Exactly. Truck drivers can make six figures. I know many of them. Exactly. I know many of them too. But no, I'm sorry, truck drivers. You are part of the poor, forgotten, the born into the wrong family under capitalism. It's so condescending of like working class people.
I see nothing. I think nothing. I have no reaction to what I'm seeing because I believe it all. I simply believe it. I believe the costumes. I believe the characters. And then for one instant, as the woman runs into the shop, I suddenly see what's happening. The way a drowning man might have one last vivid glimpse of the glittering shore. And I feel like screaming out, stop, stop, this isn't real. It's all a fantasy. It's all a play. The people in these costumes are not what you think. The accents are fake. The expressions are fake. Don't you see? It's all one instant. And then it's gone. My mind goes blank for a moment, and then I'm back to where I was. The domestic worker runs out of the shop and hurries back toward her job. And once again, I see her only as the character she plays. I see a person who works as a servant. And surely that person could never have lived, for example, the life I've lived.
Again, he's
Or
shitting
been
on working
like
class
me.
people.
She's not intelligent enough. She had to be a servant. She was born that way. The hustler surely had to be a hustler. It's all he could do. The cashier could never have worn beautiful clothes. She could never have been someone who sought out what was beautiful. She could only ever have worn that pink shirt and those green slacks. So
he's literally saying that like these are stereotypes that he has. This is his essay. Why, like, you want to tell me socialism is for the worker? Because the bougie socialist, the bougie actor, bohemian socialist is literally shitting on working class people in his essay, saying I just make the assumption that they just couldn't do anything else because of capitalism. Are you kidding me?
just as Thomas Jefferson lived in illusion because he couldn't face the truth about the slaves that he owned, I too put to use every second of my life, like my beating heart, this capacity to fantasize, which we've all been granted as our dubious birthright. My belief in the performance unfolding before me allows me not to remember those dreadful moments when all of those babies were permanently maimed and I was spared. The world hurled the infant who became the domestic worker to the bottom of a pit
What are
and
you
crippled her
talking
for life.
about?
And I saw it happen, but I can't remember
This
it
is
now.
so bizarre.
And so now it seems quite wonderful to me that the world today treats the domestic worker and me with scrupulous equality. It seems wonderfully right. If I steal a car, I go to jail. And if she steals a car, she goes to jail. If I drive on the highway, I pay a toll. And if she drives on the highway, she pays a toll. We compete on an equal basis for the things we want. If I apply,
Oh my God. Andrew says the irony of thinking everyone under socialism gets to be an actor and nobody has to drive trucks anymore. Yes, you will act, happy comrade. Yo, this guy would be like the first domestic servant under socialism, or the first like truck driver. He wouldn't even know how to drive a truck. Yeah, Emily says, I like my job at the grocery store. Has he ever thought that maybe domestic worker likes their job? I know people who have been like maids. And it was something that they chose because they got to work the hours that they wanted to work, and they only worked certain time periods, and then they got to have the rest of the day to do what they wanted. Maybe they didn't like I know a guy who started his own window washing company. He had a corporate job and he didn't like it. He didn't like being in a suit and tie all day. So he went and became a window washer, a literal fucking window washer. He was one of those people that like they put on those big ropes outside of tall buildings, and that's what you do all day. Wash windows, like servitude, man. But you know what? Then he started his own window washing company because that was what he wanted to do. It kept him outside. It was something physical. He didn't want to be behind the desk in an office all day. People like to do more like labor. There are some people who want to do this type of work. Like, why are you shitting on them and assuming that maybe it's not even just it's just like it's just they're forced into it. They just don't have the intellect to do it. And wouldn't it be great if we were all just treated equally? Well, why aren't you treating them equally already? Why are you looking down on people that work as domestic workers or cashiers or truck drivers? It makes no sense.
apply for a job, I take the test. And if she applies for the job, she takes the test. And I go through my life thinking it's all quite fair. If we look at reality for more than an instant, if we look at the human beings passing us on the street, it's not bearable.
Yeah, look, we've got Zara Normal right here. I made decent money as an office janitor and I loved it because I worked alone and I enjoyed making workspaces look great for people to show up in the office. There are people that are like janitors in schools that love being janitors in schools because first of all, janitors in schools know like everything that's going on with like everyone, but they get to be around kids and like they like that, and they like, it's like keeping things nice for the kids and things like that. Like these are not like unworthy professions, and there are reasons that some people might like to do them, and it's like, why would you look down on people for that? I mean, if you are a legitimate socialist, then why are you looking down on people who have working class professions?
It's not bearable to watch while the talents and the abilities of infants and children are crushed and destroyed. These happen to be things that I just can't think about. And most of the time, the factory workers and domestic workers and cashiers and truck drivers can't think about them either. Their performances as these characters are consistent and convincing because they actually believe about themselves just what I believe about them, that what they are now is all that they could ever have been. They could never have been anything other than what they are.
Then why are you teaching them
Of
that?
course, that's what we all have to believe so that we can bear our lives and live in peace together. But it's the peace of death. Actors understand the infinite vastness.
Exactly. You know what hurts truck drivers? Government. Government is the thing that hurts truck drivers more than anything. The cost of getting a CDL license hurts truck drivers. The cost of like all the red tape and the owner operator, like it is incredibly expensive to be an owner operator because of all the goddamn red tape, because of the government.
Hiding inside each human being. The characters not played. The characteristics not revealed. School teachers can see every day that given the chance, the sullen pupil in the back row can sing, dance, juggle, do mathematics, paint, and think. If the play we're watching is an illusion, if the baby who now wears the costume of the hustler, in fact, had the capacity to become a biologist or a doctor, a circus performer or a poet or a scholar of ancient Greek, then the division of labor as now practiced is inherently immoral. And we must somehow learn a different way to share out all the work that needs to be done. The costumes are wrong. They have to be discarded. We have to start out naked again and go from there.
Wow. Wow. All right. We just learned that Wallace Shawn is a socialist because Wallace Shawn looks down on working class people and really thinks that society has developed in a way where working class people are they have no choice but to be, lowly cashiers and lowly truck drivers, and that was awful. I thought, you know what? I could have wrapped my head around like the world needs more artists and we need to provide space for people to be artists. I could have wrapped my head around that. But like the absolute condescension to real working class people was so insulting. Yes, costume meant the bourgeois, Tayton. Costume meant the bourgeois. Exactly. So it's like really surprising to, well, it's not surprising at all. Like that guy took time to go to sessions at the Socialism Conference. He was like, learn. It's like, have you learned nothing, bro? Or does socialism really teach you to look down on working class people and teach you to have stereotypes about working class people? Yeah. What we've learned today is that Wallace Shawn hates domestic workers, even though he relies on them for his food, his trash pickup, his bohemian lifestyle, in which he takes weekends out to go to a conference to learn about socialism so that he can feel good about the fact that he wants everyone to be treated equally, even though in his real life he looks down on the people that are doing the things that need to be done that he refuses to do himself. How depressing. How, yes, we were supposed to be workers of the world unite. No, no, no. No, no, no. All right, guys, that is all we have for today. A little bit of actually, it turned out not to be a shorter stream. I thought it was going to be a shorter stream, but it's not a shorter stream. But guys, I will be back tomorrow for happy hour. On Fridays on my channel, we do happy hour, which is when we watch a woke training from start to finish. It's not socialism. It's a step down from socialism. It's like socialism light, where we watch like a woke diversity training or education session or college class or something like that. We watch it from start to finish. We decipher the woke. We talk about it. And of course, we drink some beers. And I go get some craft beer from the beer store and I teach you about craft beer. We talk about it. You're welcome to bring your drinks as well. But we'll be doing happy hour tomorrow on Friday. And then on Saturday, of course, we have Socialism Saturday at 6 p.m. And if you want to join us for our Bitchcraft, our monthly Bitchcraft call, which is on Saturday at 3 p.m. It is a supporter-only perk. And how you get access to that is by becoming a supporter on my Substack for $8 a month or $80 a year. You can also become a supporter on my Locals, my Patreon, even become a member of this here YouTube channel. And what will happen is on Saturday at 3 p.m., we're having a Bitchcraft call, which is where we get on a private Zoom that I will send out, and we bitch as we craft. I, of course, will be knitting as the far most superior of all craft. But you can do any craft that you want. You can crochet, you can draw, you can paint, you can clean your gun, you can fold your laundry, you can play video games, you can just come hang out. We do that on Saturdays, the second Saturday of every month at 3 p.m., which we will be doing this week. And of course, on Sunday, we do movie nights in the supporter Discord as well. Steven, I haven't given it a long while outside of my subscription on Substack, so here's something for you. See you tomorrow. Buy you a good beer we can vote on. Much love. Thank you, Steven. I do appreciate it, and I did appreciate your message on Instagram as well. Thank you so much for that. Guys, that's all we have for today. Make sure you subscribe to the Substack. Even if it's just the free version, I'm going to be posting more stuff from the Socialism Conference coming up real soon, and you'll be the first to know. All right, guys, mount that like button on the way out the door, and we'll see you tomorrow.